Hi, I'm Sarah Tilley from Curious Maths. In this video, we're going to be looking at the formal written method of short division. And we're going to concentrate on your child's first experience of short division. So there's not going to be any regrouping, there's not going to be any remainders in this video, but actually we're really going to focus on what your child might need at that starting stage to really secure a really good foundation. Now, in England, children may start doing some short division in year 4. It's not statutory, but many teachers start to bring it in because actually some children find it quite a tricky idea. So they start it a little bit earlier to give them longer to get their heads around it. But in year 5, it definitely happens. In year 5 in England, children are expected to divide a 4-digit number by a 1-digit number, and that will have remainders too. In year 6, long division is introduced, but children are still expected to practice their short division skills and will be carrying on with that with problem solving and reasoning. So in this video, I'm going to concentrate on showing you some manipulatives and images that you can use to really refine your teaching and make sure your child's experience of short division, their first sort of experiences, are positive and that they become really active and confident mathematicians. Let's have a look at some manipulatives that you could use at home to help you with short division. And these are the kinds of things we use in school, in loads of different maths lessons, actually. So at the top, the blue ones, they're called base 10 or Deans. Deans is simply the name of the gentleman who invented them, and you may well remember them from school. They're really great because you can actually see the value. And this is 1,000. It's made up of 1,000 of these squares. We have 100 here, and you can actually count out 100. You could put the 10s on there and see that there are 10 lots of 10. We have a 10 here, clearly marked, and we have a 1. Underneath, these are called place value counters. Haven't been around too long, but they're a really great addition to the maths resources. So they're simply counters with a value written on them. And these ones are foam. I find they're particularly good because they don't make so much noise when you play games with them. But as you can see, written on them is the value. And really helpful when you're starting to look at bigger numbers, because obviously this takes up a lot more space. Now, your question will be, where's my child at? Does my child need to see 100 to realise it's 100? Or would they do okay with the place value counters? There's a little bit of a developmental jump between these two. So we often use these a lot for children, perhaps, who need to visualise and see the size of the number. But by the time we get onto hard short division, we will be simply using these, and then we'll be moving to using short division without any manipulatives at all. Finally, you could use counters or cubes, something like that. So the colours don't need to match the ones that your child perhaps uses at school. They need to be flexible mathematicians, but you can just assign a colour cube to a value, write that down, and then you can use the cubes you've got. Let's have a go at this question, 336 divided by 3. So I've set it out here in the short division method, and I don't call this the bus stop method, and it might have been what you were taught it as when you were in school, but I really can't work out, apart from the fact it might look like a bus stop, what it's got to do with maths. So I always talk to children about it being the short division method, and that's what the national curriculum talks about it as, and that's what we as teachers should, because that's the maths description. So short division, not bus stop. Right, so I've written it out in the short division method, and what I've also done, as you'll notice, is I've built it with the place value counters. And this is something your child can do straight away. So you could write the question and you can say, can you build it? I'm using place value counters for space, but you can use any of the resources I talked about just a moment ago. So the first thing to say really is this is quite unusual for your child, because in all the other calculation work they've done, they've always started on the right. So for example, when they were doing 36 at 24, we always talk about starting in the ones column. We always start on the right. When we subtract, we always start on the right. And actually, this is the first time that we're saying, forget all of that. This time we're starting on the left. So for some children, they might want to start there. So just look out for that and make sure that they start on the left. So we're going to look at what we call a grouping method. And a grouping method is like your times tables, because when you're doing your 3 times tables, you're counting in threes, threes, threes. Grouping is different to sharing, but it gives the same answer. But imagine if I had 336 cakes and I was sharing them between 3 people, then I'd go 1 for you, 1 for you, 1 for you. And then I'd start again, 1 for you to the person 1 to you, 1 for you. But actually with this one, what we're doing is we're taking threes, 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 lots of threes from this value. So with that in mind, when we're dividing by 3, we're going to organize our place value counters in groups of 3. And children are quite used to grouping counters. They start doing that from year 2 when they're looking at multiplication, but actually they're not used to the counters having a value of more than 1. So they're not used to each counter being worth 10 or each counter being worth 100. Right, let me show you. So when I'm dividing by 3, I group into 3s. So let's look at the hundreds, put them together as a 3. How many 3s have I got? I've got 1 group of 3. Next, the tens column, I can see once again, because I have started very simply, I have 1 group of 3. And now let's look at our ones. Because I'm dividing by 3, I need to put them in groups of 3. How many groups of 3 have I got? I have got 2 groups of 3. So 336 divided by 3 is 112. Once you've done this question, what we want to do is build on what we've already got. So if you give your child a question that would follow on well from this, it would be something like this. We're going to stick with dividing by 3. This time we're just going to add 3 more. So it will become how many 3s in 339, because at this stage we're not looking at regrouping or remainders. Now what's interesting at this stage is, does your child put all of these away and start all over again? Do they think, hang on a minute, if I added 3 more here, it would be another group of 3, and recognize that if that was 112, then this answer must be 113. And building on that, the next question, you might even say to them, what's the next question going to be? And see if they can add 3 to this to actually tell you that the next question must be 342 divided by 3. And they should be able to say in time that the answer would be 114. So rather than doing loads of random questions, choose one that builds on from the next. They can add the extra 3 each time. But if you do it that way, they're going to get some real confidence. And then when you've done quite a few, you can move on to a new question and do exactly the same progression. You could go backwards as well. So you could actually take 3 away from that to make it 333 divided by 3, and see if they can spot that it would be 1 fewer group of 3. It's just getting them talking about what they see, what they already know, and making connections. Let's look at a 4-digit number divided by a 1-digit number. So there's no regrouping again. It's not the focus of this video, but I have got another video which shows the process when you are regrouping and finding remainders. But we still want to expose the children to larger numbers. So we still want to go into those thousands with questions like this, just to give them that confidence. So I've written my short division method by here. I have built it using place value counters, but I've also drawn it using place value counters too. So if you haven't got any place value counters or any counters and you want to get started, then the draw option is a really good one too. And your child should be quite familiar with that idea from school, or if not, they'll pick it up really quickly. So we start in the thousands column. Remember, this is a different thing for your child. They're used to starting in the ones. When we're dividing by 2, we're going to put our values into groups of 2. How many groups of 2 have we got? Look, we can actually circle the drawn one. We have 1 group of 2. Next, the hundreds column. We've got 600. We're putting them into groups of 2. How many groups of 2 have we got? 1, 2. We have got 3 groups of 2. Tens column. we've got 40. How many groups of 2 have we got? We've got 2 groups of 2. And finally, the ones column, we have 1 group of 2. So you might have noticed I hardly did any teaching. It was all in what you could see me doing. And I limited my language. I didn't talk a lot. I just exactly said what I was doing. And that's the really, really good thing about using manipulatives and images. You've got something to support what you're saying with. Your child can see it, and they can also practice it themselves. So 2,642 divided by 2 is 1,321. Always get your child to say that full calculation out at the end. And just as before, we're going to build on that same idea. So we're going to give a question which builds on the one before. So for this one, we could simply do, how many 2s in 2,644? We're adding 2 more to the value. So your child would need to draw 2 more here, or they would need to add 2 more here, whatever they need to do. And straight away, they might start to pick up, especially if you've done the same thing for the 3-digit numbers where we started. They might spot what you're doing straight away, and then they are pattern sniffing. And that's what really great mathematicians do. They sniff for patterns. They have a look and see what they already know. So they might be able to tell you straight away it's going to be 1 more group of 2. So the answer is going to be 1,322. And you could build up to 2,646, or build down to 2,640 and see if they can just tell you the answer from what they know. You could also ask them to write you a question, and you could answer the question and ask them then to give you another question, just like you've done for them, that would help you build on what you just learned and see if they can pick up that pattern too. And actually, this is just like immersion into division. Loads of deeper thinking going on here. So in terms of short division with no regrouping, you can't really go any much harder than this, and you wouldn't want to. So you're a bit limited in the types of questions that you give to mean that your child won't be regrouping or have a remainder. But when you feel that they've mastered this, when they can do this without the counters, without drawing it out, when they can kind of picture what's going on in their head, then they're ready to move on to short division with some regrouping. Here is a summary of the main teaching points. Use a manipulative or an image to really support not just your teaching, but your child's understanding of this idea. Short division can be quite tricky. So by enabling your child to be an active mathematician and take a bit of charge of their learning, it's only going to help in the long run. Really think about the questions that you're going to give your child. Rather than give them a random set of division questions, build carefully so that your child can make a connection with the question they just solved and the question they're about to do. Get them to look out for any patterns, get them to talk about what they see, get them to wonder what the answer might be based on what they already know. And before you know it, your child will start really communicating that they're understanding exactly what they're doing. And if they can do that, then they're definitely ready to move on to short division with regrouping.